show for 2020.
This is the MikeDJKelly Podcast.
Sounding excited.
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
Mike Kelly.
They think it's all over. Well, it is now. Lights are off, the tree's down and back in the loft. Last year it was the vegan sausage roll, and for 2020 it's the vegan steak and bake. What a great way to start the year. So here it is, time for the latest new, improved, bigger and better, shorter than short, shabby MikeDJKelly podcast show, which we insist you should tell your friends about. You know, I know, as we head off on another act-packed audio adventure with the first 2020 poddy.
On this week's podcast.
Coming up, competitions, radio, Noel Edmunds, bread, Greg Wallace, phone boxes, tickets to heaven, weighted blankets, Yorkshire Bank, and a whole lot more. Good news for us podcasters, as I see in the press, that podcasts are taking over the space left vacant by radio. Having listened to the radio over Christmas and at funny times of the day, some of it just not worth tuning in for. On the morning of this poddy, a discussion on the local station for many minutes around whether it was a polo neck, a roll neck, or a turtleneck. In the end, I changed channels. Saw an item from an ex-station manager saying a recent BBC Devon news bulletin had no local content, and it was the same on BBC Radio Leeds on New Year's Day. Australia, Cyprus, Scarborough, and as near as we got to Leeds, Sheffield. Let's remember, there was a time when radio was entertaining, not just getting people to call in for their views on the big issues of the day, or call to say what their New Year's resolution is, shout-outs, or reading out the names of people who've got the answer to the quiz wrong. Not entertainment, just filling the time. Why not a radio show with no phone-in unless it's an interview, and competitions where you guess the answer at home and it's confirmed at some point later in the show? Talking of radio, Mr. Crinkly Bottom, that's Noel Edmunds to you and me, celebrated his 71st birthday on the 22nd of December 2019.
This is the shorter than short Mike Kelly Podcast.
I notice a lot of homeless people and beggars on the streets have dogs, which I can understand because they're a great company and you can keep warm. But do you think that the dog of a homeless person knows that it's living a different sort of life to a normal dog living with a family in a semi? Talking of which, came across the Christmas edition of The Big Issue. Very good stories and info. Do you know how much the Big Issue costs? Well, buy one next time you see for sale and then you'll know. And another question, who was the first person to have a #1 hit in America? It was a long time ago, no prizes, and the answers somewhat later in the poddy. Now this story that's going around about Sharon Stone joining a dating site and then being removed because nobody would believe the real Sharon Stone would need such a service and was removed as an imposter. It all smells to me. Maybe she owns it, maybe she was paid to be on it, just does not seem right. And on another note, IDS getting a gong in the New Year's honours, an order Burko left out, just does not seem right. But while we're in this murky area, a lot of disquiet about the election results, particularly with regards to the postal vote, which according to the numbers was 37% of the entire vote. All postal voting is counted by a private company called IDOX, IDOX. This is the Mike Kelly Podcast. If a fox got into your garden and you clubbed it to death, would you tell everybody on Twitter, regardless of the rights or wrongs? Would you publicise it in this way? I see on Twitter Sam Wolfson put, how can Greg Wallace claim to be a culinary expert on MasterChef, yet on Inside the Factory play so dumb he pretends not to know that quiches would be made with eggs? It's an unsustainable dualism. If you want to get in touch with anything to do about the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use either of the following to contact us. Or if you want to send your own stories for the next episode, email cuttings or sound clips to email hello@MikeDJKelly.co.uk or on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. If you want to be alerted to future podcasts, it's the usual arrangement. Get your people to talk to my people and we'll sort something out. Now seriously, give me a wave on MikeDJKelly Podcast on Messenger.
This is the shorter than short Mike Kelly Podcast.
Festive spirit was in great abundance with British Gas, who days before Christmas increased meter top-up prices for the worst off in society. You used to be able to top up with £1. Now its a minimum top-up is £5. Whilst writing the short and short, yes, some thought and preparation goes into it. I'm baking some bread. Dairy-free, so my vegan daughters can eat it. Just a matter of replacing butter with olive oil. Anyway, was tempted to have a go at sourdough bread. But what a palaver with its startup mixture. It's not like my diet even allows me to eat bread.
Golly gosh.
Guess the celebrity, born Leslie Sebastian Charles on the 21st of January 1950 at Fyzabad in Trinidad and Tobago. He has British nationality and is an English recording artist who had a string of R&B and international pop hits in the 1970s and 80s. In 1985, he won the Grammy Award for the Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for his worldwide hit Caribbean Queen, No More Love on the Run, and in 1987 was nominated for the Brit Award for the Best British Male Artist. Who is he?
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
Did you notice a lot of the TV adverts are the same ones they showed between Christmas and New Year last year? Is it the fact that we have too much time on your hands, nothing to do because you're on holiday, that makes you go out to the shops and buy a new sofa or book a holiday? I'm sorry, Wallace and Gromit, but selling out to DFS is not on. What everybody needs is a good book, film or hobby. Then you would not need to go out and spend money. Why not bake some bread?
This is the Short and Short Mike Kelly Podcast.
Some councils are promising that city centres will be traffic-free by 2023. I'm not an expert, but I hope they have thought this through. Whatever they are proposing needs to be as easy as getting into the car and driving there, not more difficult, more expensive or more time consuming. You'll need a much better train, tram and bus transport system if you still want people to support your town and city centres. Building a park and ride where you park on the outskirts is just an inconvenience. You need to be able to get public transport at a reasonable price with regular services that run frequent low price services from where you live. Not drive part way there, then transfer to a bus or tram. That's plain daft, and city centres will continue to get quieter than they already are.
It's new for 2020.
Do you remember in the dark and distant past, after mobile phones had been about for a few years, BT started selling off the red phone boxes as they were not needed anymore. But where are they now? You used to see them in nightclubs and hotels, and people would have them as greenhouses or shower cubicles. A few people are talking on social media about the soundtrack of their life and what songs are important to them. Have you got yours sorted? I do our top 10 on BCB 106.6 FM. The guests have to choose 10 tracks and they often say how difficult it is. You can hear my back catalogue. Just shout or search MikeDJKelly Podcast.
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
Saw The Sound of Music again the other day and ended up in tears again. And on a musical note, it's competition time. What song do these lines come from? Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for? It's a crazy situation. Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for? It's a crazy situation.
It's new for 2020.
Sounding snazzy.
If you want to get in touch about anything to do with the Shorter Than Short podcast show, please use either of the following to contact us. Or if you want to send your own stories for the next episode, email cuttings or sound clips to email hello@MikeDJKelly.co.uk or on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. Today's do-gooders are the People's Dispensary for Sick Animals, or to you and me, the PDSA, which can be found at pdsa.org.uk. What do? PDSA is a charity. They want a lifetime of well-being for every pet. Everyday vets in the 48 pet hospitals care for sick and injured pets, saving lives and keeping pets happy and healthy. Pets are part of the family. Our four-legged friends give unconditional love, and they are sometimes our only companion. They don't deserve to suffer because of financial difficulty or social hardship. They can't help themselves, but the PDSA can help with your support. Treating pets is a huge part of what they do, but their work doesn't stop there. They are also a leading authority on pet health and well-being, from raising awareness of pet obesity to surveying the state of Britain's pet nation, raising the status of animals to celebrating their contribution to our lives. But they cannot do any of it without you. Your support is invaluable to keeping their doors open and helping them to be there when pets need help most. Check out the website at pdsa.org.uk for more info.
This is the Shorter Than Short Mike Kelly Podcast.
I see in Florida, Tito and Amanda Watts were arrested a few days ago for selling golden tickets to heaven to hundreds of people. They sold the tickets on the street for $99.99 each and told buyers the tickets were made from gold and would reserve the buyer a space in heaven. You simply have to present it at the pearly gates. Tito said in his police statement, "I don't care what the police say. The tickets are solid gold, and it was Jesus who gave them to me behind the KFC and told me to sell them so I could get some money to go to outer space. I met an alien called Stevie who said if I get cash together, he would take me and my wife on his flying saucer to his planet that is made entirely of drugs." Sounds good, so who would like to buy a star? Just send £100 to me and I will send the deeds for your star to you. Alright, something you really can buy, weighted blankets. Who's going to fall for that wheeze of having weights to stop your blankets falling off the bed? Have you really been having an issue with the blankets falling off the bed? The wife has told me we've got some on order. Yum.
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
I moaned in the last poddy about the Yorkshire Bank online service going down. Well, it's done it again, but this time affecting many customers at all three of its different banking services. Since the last issue, here's what I've been thinking about banks. Otley is a market town, and most transactions at market stalls are made in cash. Yet Otley only has 2 outside cash machines these days, and often one of them is faulty, leaving you queuing at the remaining machine. Does it put people off shopping in Otley? Other places have multiple cash machines on one street. Do you think there is a master plan for ATMs, or is it more on a hit and miss type thing? When I was young and had a passbook and a checkbook, I never doubted for a moment that my money might not be safe, but now I do. Also, compared to when I was younger, look at how many banks have closed down their branches, got rid of loads of their staff and moved to an online or app-based services with no human intervention.
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
A couple of nice stories from The Guardian. The homelessness crisis was spiralling out of control in Manchester like everywhere else. Jed King had experienced homelessness as a teenager before joining the army. He'd come out close again afterwards, like so many ex-servicemen. I knew what it was like to feel unloved and not cared for. I decided I was going to help the homeless community, that anyone homeless who comes into the shop where I work would get a free haircut. Whilst he's not suggesting that homelessness can be cured with a haircut, it's lovely to hear him describing cutting the hair of someone from the street. Put a gown on them, clean off the dirt, a beautiful and astonishing thing happens to the person in that chair. They remember who they are, reconnect with themselves, receive a person who was there before it all went wrong. He started going out on the streets himself, talking to people, cutting their hair, and the enterprise has grown. It has an outreach team, including additional coaches, doctors and a vet, who go walking the streets, giving out local packs, having conversations and cutting hair. The haircut is really irrelevant now. It's just a tool to connect with somebody, says King. James Anderson, the plumber, became something of a viral sensation a few months ago when he fixed the boiler of a terminally ill 91-year-old woman, then sent her an invoice for £0. The woman's daughter posted it on Facebook. But this is far from his first job. Anderson has been at it since 2017, when he went to see an elderly man who'd been quoted £5,500 to install a new boiler that he didn't need. The engineer had put a print magazine in the water tank to stop the water going into the cylinder. Luckily, the man got a second opinion. That's when I decided to do something. Anderson went to see his accountant, who suggested starting a community interest company, CIC. He pays himself £100 a week, he says. Any profit from private work goes back into the CIC and thus back into the community. Though there wasn't much profit for a while, he was several £1,000s in debt. Having his story go viral has certainly helped. Some £82,000 has come in from crowdfunding alone since the zero invoice news broke. He has rehired part-time the two lads he had to lay off. Anderson can now help more of the old and vulnerable of Burley and beyond. He has plans to expand.
This is the Short of the Short, Mike Kelly Podcast.
If you want to get in touch with this top-rated, much-listened-to podcast, please contact by email hello@MikeDJKelly.co.uk or on Twitter @MikeKellyDisco. Indeed, if you want a podcast making for your business or need any help with radio producer or presentation work, please get in touch. You can always get the Mike DJ Kelly Podcast show by going to iTunes or Spotify and searching Mike DJ Kelly. Okay, it's time to go. So who was the first British person to have a #1 hit in America? This is according to the late Sunday evening programme on BBC Radio 2. Laurie London is the answer. London was born in Bethnal Green. At the age of 13, he made an up-tempo version of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands with the Jeff Love Orchestra for Parlophone Records, which was picked up by its co-owned American sister label Capitol Records. In April 1958, it reached #1 on several charts. Guess a celebrity, born Leslie Sebastian Charles on the 21st of January 1950 at Fyzabad in Trinidad and Tobago. He has British nationality and is an English recording artist who had a string of R&B international pop hits in the 1970s and 80s. In 1985, he won the Grammy Award for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for his worldwide hit Caribbean Queen, No More Love on the Run, and in 1987 was nominated for the Brit Awards for Best British Male Artist. Who is he? Billy Ocean. What song are these lines from? Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for? It's a crazy situation. It was by Oasis. It was called Cigarettes and Alcohol. That's enough for this edition of the Crazy Shorter Than Short Shabby Podcast Show. From me, Mike Kelly, thank you for listening. And remember, you can always find the podcast by searching or shouting Mike DJ Kelly Podcast.
It's new for 2020.
This is the Mike DJ Kelly Podcast.
Sound excited.
This is the Mike Kelly Podcast.
Mike Kelly.